Well, I'm just going to talk about the biggest problem that I see in today, and I think it's just in general everything that predicates all problems in the world. And it's that everybody is basically fundamentally, who are not, except for the people who are not in it, are living in the slave system, and that everything is based on the perpetuation of the slave system. Now you probably think, like, what the fuck are you talking about? The slave system. But the reason why people get excited for the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's when we hit it hard, that's when we have fun, is because you're believed that you're only allowed to have fun on a Saturday and a Friday night. Tourism. People travelling the world. The idea of tourism, mostly, is an arrogant perpetuation of the self onto other things in which are much more greater than you. Most of the time. Because there's another thing as well. You see people like taking pictures of themselves with things all the time, which I don't understand, because like you're going there to see these objects, but you just constantly get out the phone and take photographs of them, which represent really nothing of the experience that you're going to have by just standing there and looking at it. And I'm just trying to understand and brood on it, like, what does this mean? I mean, what does this thing in which we don't have anymore to represent our society we live in, what does that mean? Like, what did that thing which existed hundreds of years ago mean for them, and why do we not have such a thing now for ourselves? And this is the thing, the fact that we don't have anything that represents that for ourselves today is the reason why most people who go and see these things are literally just on their phones taking pictures of it. Selfie of you like standing behind this great creation of mankind, in which represents something much greater than yourself. And so there's another thing, it's like, do you really think this thing, is on the same level as you? Like, this thing, it represents something much greater than most people in general. So it's like something I don't understand, is like just people taking photographs. No one seems to be just looking at these things and trying to understand what they mean. Why else are you there? So you can just take photos and then show people these things as like a form of like superiority, to say, oh look, I was here and you weren't there, because there's a picture of me in that picture and you're not in that picture, therefore I'm better than you. Like, why don't you just go there and just experience it? Why do you have to take photos of yourself in these certain areas? Because no one wants to look at you. No one wants to look at you on the phone. The only reason why you've got yourself in these photos is because you're just going to boast about it to your family and friends and colleagues even. Because again, that's another thing, is about colleagues and who you work with. And because and again, this is a slave system thing, because the idea of holiday doesn't really exist. The idea of going to work doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is living, and being in the living experience. And the thing is, the reason why we think holidays exist, we're going on a holiday, we're going to work, go to the 9 to 5, we're going to have some partying on the weekend. The reason these things exist is because we're in a slave system. We're indoctrinated through slave terminology to believe that these things exist. Otherwise, they don't exist. Okay, and then these slave terminology things, they perpetuate themselves so that you never leave it. So it's like, oh, I need to go on my holiday now. Done it off the checklist. But then even going on your holiday, the whole process is as if you who is more superior, is taking a break from your own life. Therefore, you need to take a break and allow everything to entertain you, instead being entertained by the things in which you see. This is another thing of tourism. It's like, I'm going to go and see this thing and it's going to have to entertain me. Because I'm above it. It's just this attitude. But it's very interesting. And again, it's fundamentally this slave terminology game in which we live in, or we're bred into it. Most people are bred into it. And most people don't escape it. But we're fundamentally living individuals. Don't go on holiday. Don't go on and take a tourism trip. Because most of the time, it's to entertain mediocrity, so that you go back to work. It's not like these things are done and kind of presented in a way to inspire you fundamentally. Because they want you to just go back to work. They don't want you to be inspired and be like, damn, let's create something and let me hustle on something so that I leave the system that I've been in for so long. It doesn't do that. And this is another thing with the weekend. Going out on the weekend, most of the time is based around taking a break from the 9 to 5, but taking so much of a break that it's a form of escapism so that you don't actually leave the 9 to 5, because you're always just like, you know, partying, getting drunk, all that stuff is fine, of course, but like it's a thing that becomes mandatory for you every weekend, and this is the problem. It's like a release, an escapism, and it's that society's functioned and it's been crafted in a way through slavery, because we are, like most people are, slaves to these systems. I mean, it's not like you're going to escape them anytime soon unless you find a way to escape them. Is that they're crafted and formulated in a way so that you don't escape it fundamentally. And that's what the 9 to 5 is. That's what the weekend is. The weekend you get drunk and you escape, and then the Monday comes back and it's like you don't want to go to work, but you have to find the inspiration, so you buy that energy drink in which says break the Monday ritual, #break the Monday ritual, or some shit like that. It's like, oh yeah, like, oh, I hate Mondays, but I'm just going to take the Monday energy drink, and that's going to help me get inspiration to get back into the slave system, because, you know, I just can't escape it, and it's just horrible. It's like, well, you could use the weekend to do the hustle on the thing that you want to get away from, but that's not how it's broadcasted to you. They won't broadcast it to you like that. That's risky. You don't want to be risky. Because if you're risky, then you might actually succeed at something. The risk-reward situation. If you're comfortable, you won't make any risks, but you'll be the little worm in the soil who just wriggles around and he's just being waited. You're waiting to just, for that bird to open up your eyes a little bit so that you just get consumed by the great eagle which comes down and swoops you up, or the mole in which like finds you in the mud. Worms. It's like it's a situation of people just being comfortable and then not taking any risks, and then I'm just gonna get eaten by the Great Reset or something, or gonna get eaten by the inflation problem, or gonna get eaten by the economic collapse, or one of these existential situations, because no risk has been taken to be like, I see this thing coming. It's not come yet, but I see it coming, therefore I'm going to take some risks to avoid the thing that's coming. But you could also just be comfortable and ignore it and be ignorant, but that's up to you. I mean, like, what? It's the thing, it's just crazy. But that is my critique and pet peeve of the world at large. And it's kind of scary to think that most things, the reason why most things are moved is because there is a fundamental slavery embedded in it, and a process of trying to constantly escape the slave system. The only reason why you're going to work is to escape the slave system. But then it's not even like that either, because it's like, why are you going to work? Why are you going to a job you don't enjoy doing? It's just to pay the bills, pay the rent. But then because of these other things which are added on, which perpetuate it still, actually loses the fundamental reason of why someone's doing it. It's interesting. People need to take more risks. People need to be more virtuous. And people need to have fundamental respect. And humility. Because this is the thing, it's just this there's lack of humility. And I understand it. We live in a modern world which tells you to be narcissistic through the idea of us being told in the media and through social media and all this stuff that our lives are really important and that we should gain likes and social media influence and all this type of stuff. Influence for no reason, because you're just being told to have influence. So that we have this arrogance embedded, and an arrogance that is not founded on anything. I mean, some people can be arrogant, but they need to find a reason to be arrogant. Arrogance is fine, as long as you've got a reason for it. But, so you have that, and then you have us, as modern people, fundamentally not having a value system in which is predicated on something larger than ourselves. We don't have a value system that's predicated on something larger than ourselves and our ego. Therefore, we don't respect the things in which we see, and we don't respect the history in which has existed. And therefore, you just have most people taking pictures of themselves in front of things in which they think is smaller than them, because they just want to perpetuate their existence on social media, and the fact that I was there as like being more important than I'm trying to, in the process, understand why this thing even exists. So it's fascinating. I'm going to do a video on the psychology of architecture, and it's going to be a good video, because it's like I'm trying to observe these things, I'm trying to understand them. I'm trying to understand architecture is something fundamentally fascinating to me. I've always been fascinated by architecture, urbanization, how things are urbanized, how things were urbanized in the past compared to now, and all this. I'm going to do a big video on urbanization and the problem with our modern world today in relation to it. I'm going to talk about Dubai, all these things, and then I'm going to talk about places in Europe and the past and history and equations within architecture, because there's philosophical equations that can be retained and achieved and understood through looking at architecture. For example, highest value is equal to the highest building. Look at the Burj Khalifa. Money doesn't mean anything more than money. Nothing else that actually fundamentally predicates its existence than just money. Which, to be honest, money doesn't even exist. I mean, like, fiat currency doesn't exist. Money is gold, bullion and all that, but glass buildings, ooh, so beautiful. They're not beautiful, they're horrible. Ugliest looking things you ever see. You compare that to the symmetry, sacred symmetry of all these other buildings that were built before it that last and actually stand. I mean, these other buildings are not going to stand, they're not sustainable. But anyway, I'm going to be talking about that stuff in another video. But that's it, just my rant about the fundamental problems of this world. Is that we're unconsciously conscious of our own unconsciousness. And we need to break the slave system. And people are like, well, if you break the slave system, be replaced by another slave system. Look what cryptocurrency is. It's probably just going to end up being another slave system. Just self-sufficiency, independence. We don't have to think about things on a collective level. Self-sufficiency, independence. Obviously, things are interconnected. But as long as some people from my videos can either be inspired or motivated to find freedom within themselves and in the world in which reflects their existence, and the world in which reflects their existence from their experience of the world, then that's all that matters. We're talking about small things. I'm talking about big things like freeing the global world. We can't free the global world because most people don't want to be freed. It's just the case. Most people don't want freedom. And you can go into the critique of what does freedom mean, blah blah blah, all that, but most people like being told what to do. Most people don't have their own form of direction, and most people don't have the courage to find their own direction. Like I said, the worm analogy, waiting to die in the mud to be found by an eagle in which is going to swallow them up, which is probably going to be the person that's more courageous than them, in which I'm talking about. Because there is that natural law in nature is that there is always going to be something in which kills another thing for it to survive. It's like the idea of veganism and vegetarianism. It doesn't exist. It's not a real idea. Something always has to die for something else. It's part of nature. It's natural law. Hence, because of this natural law, you hear the idea in the conversation that's talked about you're going to have to eat insects and you're going to have to eat them instead. All this, what? I can't be a vegan and vegetarian. I'm going to have to eat insects to get my protein. What does that include? Killing something. Killing something so that you are fed with something. Killing something to be rewarded with something. But instead it's on the most minuscule slave-minded orientation, which is eating little insects because I don't want to buy meat anymore because it's bad for the environment. I don't want to buy a steak. All this silly nonsense. Like, you think the world's overpopulated? Have you been on a plane before? You really think it's overpopulated? Have you seen the vast landscapes of green around the world for millions and millions of miles? And you think the world's populated? You've never been on a plane before. It's just crazy. The whole, and of course, no one actually believes this. People are possessed by ideas, and the ideas are perpetuated them through the media, and they're more submissive than directed or authentic. Therefore, they believe in these ideas, and that's that. But yeah, this is just a continuous rant about problems. But anyways, but yeah, for a little pitch of the program, I'm building the program. If you want to escape the slave mindset, the slave mentality, the slave philosophy, the way of living as a slave, if you want to escape that, join the program, Maiorum Society. It's being built up. It's not a secret Illuminati society in which you might be thinking by looking at the logo or anything like that. It's for young men who want to transform themselves through a program in which is dedicated to as many possible coaches as possible. It's a coaching network. You want to learn about nutrition, you want to activate genes within you that have never been activated until your ancestors fought in the fields of some sort of Babylonian war. Then come into the program. We're gonna direct people towards self-transformation, in which people activate ancient genes within them. That's fundamentally what the program is about. We've got coaches in nutrition, personal trainers who focus on developing your own physique so that you can be more comfortable in being more comfortable in being confident, which is fundamentally the thing. To develop a frame for yourself as a young man, relationship advice, dating and stuff like that. For example, we've got Richard Grannon on board of this. He's a very popular CPDSD coach. He's very popular on YouTube and stuff. You've probably seen a lot of his videos. He's on board of this. So if you want to join it. It'll probably be a good decision if you're that type of individual. You can join the program by signing up, and then when you've signed up, you fill out a questionnaire of questions in which we want to know about you to see if you're suitable for the program, and then we contact you. And then we get on call with you, and we schedule a call, and it goes on from there. And then you're put into the society, and it's fundamentally a community in which wants to develop self-transformation. And if that's the thing that you're looking for at the moment, in this alienated world, in which nothing exists but the past and history, which doesn't relate to you and your future, then join the program. This is what it's about. It's about building the future. This is the thing as well. So architecture, all these things from the past, they exist for our ancestors, and now they were built for the future, of course. But no one is respecting it for their own lives and for the future in which they want to exist in. No one is taking and harnessing the values in which can be found within them. And that's what the program's about. Perpetuating the values that can be found within ancestral knowledge in which has been built around the world, in which is neglected fundamentally, and creating a maiorum. which was also about ancestral knowledge, passing down ancestral knowledge to our children or to the people of the future, so that new systems of love and beauty can be built from them. That's what it's fundamentally about, love and beauty. Like, nothing else is more important than that. So join the program. There's a link in the description. Follow up on everything there is in there, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Hit on the landing page and do the questionnaire and all that type of stuff, and we'll get back to you very soon on it. So I'll see you inside.